Now we are going to open the first panel of the day, which is called Building an Inclusive Digital Economy and Society that Leaves No One Behind. We have with us 4 key stakeholders when it comes to digitalization on the African and the European continent. We have with us Carla Montesi, Director for the Green Deal and Digital Agenda at the European Commission Director General for International Partnerships. Welcome. We have with us Lassina Kone, Director General and CEO of Smart Africa, Nanjira Sambuli, Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and Oyironka Oyetunde, Head of Regulatory Affairs at the MTN Group. Welcome everyone. It's an honor for us to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us. We talk about an inclusive digital economy and society. Indeed, an important topic for many of us, basically for all of us, because we cannot escape digitalization, even if we want to, wish to, it's not possible. So I would like to address our first question to Director Carla Montesi. The heads of state, of government, of the member states of the African Union and the European Union met for the European African Union Summit in Brussels in February. The European Council President said that a new forward-looking, ambitious spirit has emerged that must form the foundation of this special partnership between Europe and Africa. Director Montesi, what are your main takeaways from the summit with regards to the cooperation in the digital sector? And also, what can we expect in terms of implementation of a joint vision for 2030? Director Montesi, can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so sorry, I lost the connection. Thank you very much, Sansi, and I'm really very happy to be with you to kick off this first edition of the African Europe D4D Hub Multi-Stakeholder Forum. So I'm very happy. We have already just listened to our Commissioner Urpilainen that really highlights how we need to strengthen our effort to ensure safe and secure access to digital technology for fairer, greener and sustainable future for all. And we are really glad to have a partner like the African Union and our dear partners around the table in this session and share with them this ambition. As you know, we have launched together this African Union D4D Hub, really as a new instrument to advance the digital transformation and the digital partnership between our 2 continents. Many thanks, Sansi, to ask the question about the first results of the African Union Summit. We are just some weeks in the aftermath of the African Union Summit. You know that we have announced that there are an ambitious global gateway package. Our commissioner has already underlined really to provide financial and technical support to address the digital infrastructure needs in Africa. We have announced some clear objectives that we want to achieve: tackling the digital divide, promoting a human-centric connectivity and open and secure internet, safeguarding digital sovereignty, that is very important, and lowering the carbon footprint of digital infrastructure that appeared already in your question, and fostering global cooperation on research and innovation. Of course, all this will have to be made with the private sector, with the government, with the support of the European Union, but the support also with our member states and the European financial institutions. Now we have identified at the summit some concrete interventions, some what we call the flagship, some great concrete intervention. One of these, allow me to mention, it's the Euro-Africa Gateway Cable. The idea is really to ensure, to create, to put in place an international submarine fiber cable connecting the European Union with Africa along all the Atlantic Ocean coast. This, of course, will increase the intercontinental data flows under high infrastructure and also will increase the cybersecurity standards. Now, of course, this cable, but we are also committed to scale up regional connectivity, enable the deployment of digital services, digital business and innovation by supporting the construction of networks of fiber optic cable across the sub-Saharan Africa. Will be regional backbone that will foster cross-border internet traffic and also help bridge the connectivity gap between the coastal and the landlocked countries. Of course, this will have to be complemented by measures that will increase the last mile access. And of course, this will allow to reach the rural areas that were already appearing as a needs in the answer that we have already received by your inquiry. One other flagship, and I stop here, will be the European Union data flagship, data, because the intention is really to support the creation, the development of green data centers in Africa, because we need to foster Africa data sovereignty, implementing a secure and sustainable data storage and the processing capacity. So this, of course, will contribute to the development of an Africa data economy, creating also an environment which innovation can thrive while fully respecting the right of private and the data protection. And once again, this will be clearly flagship initiative that the European Union will be support, but of course, as you can imagine, will require a joint strong work with private sector, with financial institutions, with member states, and with our key partners. When I talk about private sector, I'm including private sector in Europe and of course in Africa. A joint work, and we hope we succeed in the next 7 years to build and really to implement this concrete flagship and actions. Over to you.
Director Montesi, thank you so much for your response. Indeed, important points, and allow me to take out 2 or 3 points that you have just mentioned. One was, again, the human-centric digitalization process, and I think that has been mentioned before during this event. So putting the human in the center of what we build instead of putting the technology in the center, but building the technology around the human. I think this is a very important point to mention. And then thank you for also sharing concrete actions such as the fiber cable between Europe and Africa that is in development. I think those are things that might not be, not everyone might be aware of those projects, that those are in conceptualization or implementation already. So thank you for sharing that with us. And talking about, again, the interconnectivity, the cooperation between Africa and the European continent, I would like to come to you, Mr. Lassina Kone, CEO of Smart Africa. Many of us know Smart Africa. You play a key role when it comes to the digital transformation of the African continent. So that's why it would be interesting for us, and I think for many in the audience, to hear where you see the key added values when it comes to cooperation between Europe and Africa when we talk about digital transformation, because indeed there are many points that we can look at. But what are the key potentials for added value? And then also, how can the cooperation between the two continents foster inclusive digital transformation? Mr. Kone, if you could enlighten us a little, we'd be very pleased.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Cisse, and thank you for inviting me. And also, thanks very much to Madam Carla for her brilliant intervention right now on the flagship, which is really on the connectivity, on the data flagship. Of course, you know, Africa and Europe are on the same page in terms of the human-centric approach. You know, ICT gives Africa the means to take ownership of its own development and policy framework. and becomes more assertive on the global scene, and therefore becoming that will become a true win-win partnership with Europe or any other continent outside Africa, of course. A true win-win partnership here between Africa and Europe means really to address the opportunity and challenges, of course, mentioned by also Carla, of our mutual interest, which is Africa need to be connected. Africa need to have its own GDPR-like approach, like Europe. The fourth industrial revolution comes with the fundamental issues of sovereignty for both Europe and Africa. So by working hands in hands to create this ecosystem that are both open and protective in terms of sovereignty, Europeans and Africans will have to build the rules that will govern the digital world. We all know that we both lost the battle of data economy, that's for sure. Africa represents today a huge market for Europe and vice versa. Both sides need to work together on unleashing the African potentials. Smart Africa is ensuring that the continent develop in harmony with Europe and the rest of the world through a cooperation, a positive cooperation, digital cooperations initiative, such as the EU Africa Digital Economic Task Force, our partnership with the European development partners, such as NORAD, Norwegian Development Partner, Development Corporations, and BMZ, the German Development Corporation, through GIZ, of course, as well as the AU-EU D4D project. For example, of course, for instance, you guys know about the D4D and IDA objectives are supporting and strengthening the role of ICT, digitalization stakeholders, civil society, and academia to engage and contribute actively in multi-stakeholder dialogue. Smart Africa's responsibility in that idea is for communications, disseminating, and sustainability of the project. As far as the D4D and IDEP is concerned, which objectives they established to join Africa-Europeans' approach to connect and develop digital innovation ecosystem, our approach to Smart Africa with the IDEP is to really improving and scaling a supportive policy framework for innovations hub, for innovative innovations hubs in Africa. So this is really my part. It's really, it's the music in my ear when Carla is talking about the connectivity, which of course comes really at a fundamental flagship for Africa to be connected. As you know, we fall below the average, which is 54% of people around the earth are connected. In Africa, we are only around just about 38%. And the SDG goal 2030 is just around the corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kone, for sharing that with us. And let me again take out a few key points that you have just mentioned. You talked a lot about sovereignty and how important data sovereignty is on the European continent, on the African continent, so basically for both. But also, thank you for being honest when you mentioned that we might have to catch up when it comes to the digital economy and to the data economy on both continents, that there's room to grow and a lot of potential, but that we have to take action. So thank you very much for your honesty and also showing the opportunities that are there between the two continents. Thanks for now. And now looking at two different perspectives, let us come into another perspective which looks a bit more also into research of the narratives around the digital technologies, particularly interdisciplinarity insights from the global north and the global south. And we are today at a multi-stakeholder forum. So Ms. Nanjira Sambuli, I would like to address my next question to you. Can you elaborate a bit more on the meaning of multi-stakeholder engagement, the meaning that it has for you, and also in what way you consider this engagement relevant for the digital conversation and the digital development on the African continent specifically?
Thank you for that. Well, first and foremost, in its basic sense, multi-stakeholderism or multi-stakeholder engagement draws in perspectives from government, civil society, private sector, academia, technical community, basically trying to bring diversity of perspectives. But one thing that will serve us very well with this intention is making sure we're very clear which kinds, is it regional governments, is it subnational governments? When I talk about private sector, do we just look at MTN, or do we also look at the startups in different, in both continents? The same thing goes with civil society or academic representation. How do you make sure you get as many perspectives within each stakeholder group contributing to what we are here to do in a multi-stakeholder fashion? And very closely related to that is actually the goals around which we gather through the multi-stakeholder engagement. Is it just a consultative process? But do we make decisions? Are we the ones to enforce decisions once they're made through a multi-stakeholder forum? Managing those expectations is very important to make sure you keep drawing the participation of all the stakeholders. And I think of this specifically when we go beyond the big players and think about the smaller players, especially on the ground. That will be very important for us to keep in mind. It also matters a lot who convenes a multi-stakeholder engagement. And this is something for the D4D Hub to keep in mind going forward. How do you make sure you have the legitimacy conferred upon the forum as an equal representative of, say, Europe and African perspectives, one that is able to see uncomfortable conversations as and when they come up from the different aspects that we're trying to bring together to ensure that both continents advance in their digital economy agendas. And lastly, here is how it all ties to the ultimate decision-making by governments and the concept of multilateralism. How does this fit? We can talk here till kingdom come, we can put out great recommendations, but the actual decision-making power or governance power still lies with governments. So how does this process that D4D Hub is helping put together across the two continents feed back to the ultimate investments and rules of the road that will be set by governments? If we start identifying those issues, we will actually make sure that this actually works and we draw the best from all continents, both continents rather, to make sure we put the right guardrails in this proposed partnership.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And you mentioned, I think, again, key points, which were also relating to the previous speakers. And let me, again, take 2 or 3 out of them. You mentioned, and again, thanks for having really an honest panel here. I think that is not always the case. So we have a special event already in this sense. You mentioned uncomfortable conversations that one must also have when designing certain occasions, bringing people together and making sure that voices are heard, but also actions follow afterwards, and that the conversations that lead to those actions are maybe here and there uncomfortable. So I think this is important to hear, that even if a conversation might not go in the most sunniest and shiny way, it might still be a relevant conversation that we need to have. So thank you for that, and thank you also for inspiring us with your ideas or your views on how to engage different stakeholders in such a forum and make sure that later on actions follow. So thanks for the reminder on that. We will bring that also in the next session, continue with that spirit. But obviously, before we go into the next sessions, we have one distinct speaker with us, Oyeronke Oyetunde. Thank you for being here with us today, representing MTN on this panel, so the private sector. And this is a very important voice, obviously. And you have extensive experience in navigating continental and cross-border strategic investments and transactions. So let's focus on the role of the Africa-Europe partnership to strengthen the digital economy of the two continents. So specifically the economy. Where do you see the greatest potential, and what areas, in your view, require the most efforts immediately?
I bring greetings from MTN, and it's a pleasure and honor for us to be here in this forum. Key thing for me here is potential. I think Africa is full of so much potential. Just statistics, by way of statistics, Europe and Central Africa have a coverage gap of about 3%, usage gap of about 26% using the GSMA statistics. Whereas in sub-Saharan Africa, we have a coverage gap of about 19%, usage gap of about 53%. There is just so much in terms of potential, both in terms of coverage as well as both the supply and the demand side. And as a result of it, at MTN, one of the key pillars of our Ambition 2025 strategy is to lead digital solutions for Africa's progress. And part and parcel of that is ensuring access to affordable broadband connectivity and digital infrastructure. There is still a lack in this particular area. Apart from that, we also see the need to create a fit for Africa financial instruments for infrastructure deployment. You know, be it public-private partnerships, etc., to help promote the essence of infrastructure. We can talk about digital, but without the essence and without the foundations of proper infrastructure, we're still at the starting block, you know, and as Lassina Kone has said, the key thing here is we've lost the plot, but we can still regain the plot if we address the issue of infrastructure. Another point I'd like to make is I think the key, an opportunity and potential we have is to be able to import and localize best practices within our ecosystem for rules, regulations, of the ICT industry as a whole. And in this particular respect, I would like to say that MTN is proud to have been part of Smart Africa's Data Protection Working Group. You know, I think the documents that they produced, the data protection privacy document, was essential. And we need more documents like this, and we need them incorporated in our laws. I think that's the bottom line. It's not enough to have the guidelines. What we need is the actual implementation across the board, because as MTN, we have about 17 operations in Africa alone. And there is an urgent need to promote the harmonization of laws and regulations within our ecosystem to ensure that seamless connectivity. And I must emphasize the issue of a seamless cross-border flow data transfers within our ecosystem. If we don't have that, we're still at the starting block, unfortunately. And if I just mention one more thing, human resource development is also key. You know, as technology keeps moving in leaps and bounds, we also need to ensure that our education and training, etc., is accompanying it in leaps and bounds. We feel the impact in terms of the fact that the pool of resources, human resources, is from Africa for MTN. So let me stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your insights. I think, again, very important points that have been mentioned, and you stressed a lot the infrastructure that is needed. For everything we talk about, we need a certain infrastructure, we need to protect data, and again, also build the skills for people to be able to then make the best out of it. So thank you so much for this intervention. Thanks to all of you. And before we close the panel, I would have a last question, which revolves around what your personal wishes are for this forum when it comes to outcomes in the Africa-Europe digital cooperation. And as I'm an entrepreneur myself, I'm very often asked to pitch in a certain time frame. So I have to ask you the same. You have a certain time frame, and that is 30 seconds. So you have your 30 seconds pitch to share your wishes for this forum. And now we start in reverse order. So Ms. Oyetunde, it would be my honor if you start with your wishes for this forum in 30 seconds.
Promote investment in ICT infrastructure, promote cross-border data flows, promote best practices for policies, laws, and regulations within our ecosystem. And implementation is key across the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thank you also for staying within the time. So let us move to Nanjira Sambuli. What are your wishes for this forum?
For the forum to be the hub for the real conversations. We've heard that, you know, we've lost the plot, there's work to be done. There's a lot of historical aspects between the two continents that we also need to discuss. So let's make the forum the place to have the real conversation, pass on those recommendations and pain points to the implementers, and maybe we'll get the job done.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's move on to Mr. Kone. What are your wishes for this forum? What do you hope to achieve or us to achieve during that day?
Yes. To promote a real equal partnership and become a true global player in the digital economy, we need to do things differently. We cannot keep on doing the same thing and expect a different result. And transforming Africa into a single digital market, really, it will allow Africa to unlock its full potential.
Okay, you've heard it, we've heard it. We have big ambitions for this day. So, Director Montesi, can you please also share your wishes for the day and beyond that? We are not yet able to hear you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, very sorry. Here. So first, I would like to say, really allow me to support everything that was said by the member of this panel. I absolutely agree that we have a lot of work to be done, and really we need to have everyone on board to reach this ambition. So now at this forum today, we really want to get everyone's views on the need, on the challenges, on the possible solution, and just because, of course, it's a joint digital transformation that we want, we need all going and join all our efforts together in a real partnership. So thank you very much for all participating in this dialogue. We are really thrilled to hear your voice. Many thanks.
Thanks to all of you for being with us today, sharing your views, sharing your opinions, and also the goals that you have for this forum, and of course also beyond that. It was our honor to listen to you. We hope that you will tune in into some of the sessions of today, and we will definitely share the report with the outcomes with you in due time. Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon.